Ms. Nichols, take a seat, please. Thank you. What? Present? Yeah. All right. All right, good afternoon. We are continuing to follow the protests in Gaza with concern. Reports are still coming in, and it's still too early to determine the outcome of the day. As the Secretary General said in the statement we issued yesterday afternoon, we urge all parties to exercise maximum restraint and avoid confrontation. Our colleagues on the ground are closely following the situation, and if we have any more, we will share that with you. Yesterday evening, we also issued a statement on Mali in which the Secretary General condemned the mortar attack against the UN missions camp that killed 2 Chadian peacekeepers and at least injured at least 10 others in the Kidal region. The Secretary General conveyed his condolences to the government of Chad and his profound sympathies to the families and loved ones of the victims, and he wishes a swift recovery to all those injured. The Secretary General recalls that attacks targeting peacekeepers may constitute war crimes under international law. These acts only reinforce the commitment of the United Nations to support the people and the government of Mali in their quest for peace. Turning to Syria, our humanitarian colleagues are concerned about reports of escalating hostilities in IDLEB governorate. Yesterday, airstrikes on the Al-Bara town in Ahira district, south of Idlib city, reportedly hit 2 schools and a mosque, causing extensive material damage. We are also expressing our concern for the safety and protection of civilians in Duma following reports of the resumption of hostilities in the area. An estimated 78,000 to 150,000 people remain in besieged eastern Ghouta and continue to face deteriorating humanitarian conditions. The UN calls on all parties to those with influence over them to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure, to ensure freedom of movement, and to allow for safe, sustained, and unhindered access by all humanitarian parties to provide help to those who need it. In Myanmar, our colleague, Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Ursula Mueller, today visited the Maina KBC camp in Kachin State, where she met with displaced people. The camp is home to more than 2,500 women, men, and girls and boys, many of whom have been displaced since 2011. People described their lives in the camps and shared their hopes to return to their homes someday. They also talked about the challenges they are facing, including issues of land ownership, landmine contamination, protection concerns, and difficulties accessing their land. Ms. Mueller also visited the Women and Girls Center that's supported by UNFPA in the same area, where she met with women who work on prevention and response to gender-based violence and displacement in camps in Kachin. We expect OCHA to issue a press release at the conclusion of her visit on Sunday, and we understand she will be giving a press conference in Yangon over the weekend, I think either Saturday or Sunday. In Paris, the administrator for the UN Development Program, Achim Steiner, urged the international community to continue its support for Lebanon, citing its critical role for stability in the region. He was speaking at a conference hosted by the President Emmanuel Macron of France to support Lebanon's economic stability. The conference received pledges of $10.2 billion for Lebanon. Mr. Steiner praised Lebanon's capital investment plan, saying it presents an ambitious agenda to put the country firmly back on the path of economic growth and create employment opportunities for the Lebanese people and Syrian refugees alike. Lebanon is currently hosting 1.5 million Syrian refugees who've been displaced by the ongoing fighting in Syria. And Mr. Steiner was there to represent the Secretary General. In Brazil, our colleagues from the UN Refugee Agency and migrant agencies have been working with the government to ramp up the humanitarian response for the growing number of Venezuelans arriving in the north of the country. According to government estimates, more than 800 Venezuelans are entering Brazil every day as the situation in the country worsens. They're in more desperate need of food, shelter, and health care. UNHCR has been working with the Brazilian government to register them and make sure that they are arriving, with those who are arriving have proper documentation. Once documented, they have the right to work, access health, education, and other basic services. Meanwhile, the International Organization for Migration is supporting the government to relocate about 300 Venezuelans from the state of Roraima to other cities in Brazil. More than 52,000 Venezuelans have arrived in Brazil since the beginning of 2017, and more information on the web. And a new report I wanted to flag that was done by our colleagues at the UN Environment Program, and they found that solar energy dominated global investments like never before in 2017. Investments in solar power grew by 18% and is now at $160.8 billion, surpassing new investments in coal and gas, which were $103 billion last year. A driving force behind this surge is China, which leads with more than half of the world's new solar power capacity, where there are also sharp increases in investments in Australia, Mexico, and Sweden. The report also attributes this surge to the falling cost of solar electricity and to some extent wind power. Last year was the 8th in a row in which the global investment in renewable exceeded $200 billion. Since 2004, the world has invested more than $2.9 trillion in renewable energies. A couple of days to flag. The International Day for Sports Development and Peace is today. The day highlights the unique power of sport to promote social integration and economic development in different cultural and political contexts. Sports helps to promote peace, ideals of peace, fraternity, solidarity, and nonviolence and tolerance issues. And 2 more days in coming days. Tomorrow is the International Day on reflection on the genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda. In his message, the Secretary General said, on this day, we remember all those who were murdered and reflect of the suffering of the survivors who have shown that reconciliation is possible even after a tragedy of such monumental proportions. And there'll be an event, commemorative event held next Friday here at UN headquarters, which you can attend, and you'll have more details online. And World Health Day is also being observed tomorrow, and this year's theme is universal health care coverage for everyone, everywhere. And the World Health Organization is not just marking World Health Day, but also its 70th anniversary. Just want to flag again that the Secretary General is heading off to China today, and he will be for meetings with senior Chinese officials, including the president, on Sunday. And he will be back in the office Tuesday afternoon. And also just want to end with a big thank you to our friends in Nigeria who have paid their dues in full for the regular budget, which brings us up to 74. Well, you're jumping, but you know, you're ready, so go ahead. You have to be prepared, Michelle. Go ahead. I know, you obviously
Thank you, Stéphane.
did not do your homework. Yeah.
You said it was too early to tell, but there are already reports of 4 killed in the Gaza Strip. So I was wondering if you have a more updated response to what you said earlier. Thank you.
You know, we're following the news. We're trying to get some confirmation on what is going on. Nikolai Mladenov, the Secretary General's representative on the ground, he and his team have been in contact with various interlocutors to reinforce the Secretary General's message and his own message about the need to allow people to demonstrate peacefully, the need to ensure that excessive force is not used, and the need to ensure that children are not deliberately put in harm's way. So as soon as we're able to have a bit more confirmation, we may be able to say a bit more. Michelle.
Thanks, Stéphane.
Always take what's behind door number 2.
Happy International Day of Sport, or whatever it was. You may have seen Ambassador Haley's comments last night that she has disdain for the UN. Does the Secretary General have a response to that?
No, we saw the comments. I mean, all I can tell you is that the Secretary General has a very positive, very solid working relationship with Ambassador Haley, and he continues to, and he hopes to continue that positive and strong working relationship with her. And I will leave it at that. Edie.
Thank you very much, Stéphane. Violence has broken out again in Duma near the Syrian capital after about 2 weeks of calm. I wondered whether the Secretary General had any reaction to this new outbreak of violence.
Look, we've seen a renewed outbreak there, which is, I think, of great concern to us. There's still a number of people who are besieged and trapped in the areas. The situation in various parts of Syria is concerning. We're continuing to see civilians targeted, as we mentioned. In a town just south of Idlib city, we saw 2 schools and a mosque hit. We remind all parties that it is a violation of international law to target civilian infrastructure, to target civilians. And what we're also seeing is our continuing struggle to get humanitarian aid in. We're able to get some in, as we've been able to flag. We've scaled up our response to those in need who are coming out of around Afrin, but it's still what we're able to do, what our partners are able to do in terms of humanitarian aid continues to fall short because of the continued fighting. Mr. Lee.
Sure. I wanted to ask you about UN peacekeeping vetting and a reported breakdown in it. Sri Lanka there's some agreement where their Human Rights Commission is supposed to vet soldiers before they're deployed, and it's emerged there that 49 soldiers were deployed to UNIFIL in Lebanon without being vetted. They were deployed in February. Mr. Lacroix has received a letter from the same parties that wrote to him before about the colonel that was later suspended. This seems to be a more serious breach in that they're already on the ground. And so I wanted to know, one, I mean, they've asked him to confirm that this is a breach of their agreement with Sri Lanka, that it shows, if to the degree that the UN is relying on this process, the process doesn't exist. What is the UN's response to
let me check on whether the letter's been received and what actions, if any, have been taken. You had another question?
I do have another question. Yeah. I'd asked you a couple days ago about the AMISOM soldiers killed in Somalia. Uganda said it's 8, others say 59. I asked Ambassador Pierce of the UK, who said she's sure that when the UN knows, it will inform the press corps. Given that it's my understanding that UNSOS, the UN Support Office on Somalia, has a role in actually moving bodies, so it's not a matter of reading media.
No, I know, but I think it is up to AMISOM and to the countries concerned to confirm those numbers.
So it's not that you don't know; it's that you won't say.
I think it's not that I won't say. I think it is appropriate for the African Union peacekeeping mission and for the countries concerned to confirm the number of dead.
I guess I had another question about the UNSOS. I'd ask you about a sexual exploitation investigation by OIOS that I've heard is taking place there against the D1. I know the name of the individual, but I've been waiting to hear to respond that this is, in fact, given how seriously this is being taken in the UN, will you confirm or deny this OIOS investigation?
My understanding that allegations were indeed reported to the UN Support Office in Somalia in November of 2017, subsequently posted on the Conduct and Discipline website. The Support Office is currently reviewing the allegations of exploitative relationship, which involves an international civilian, in view of collecting sufficient information to conduct an investigation if warranted.
And I just want to confirm, if you can confirm that the alleged victim here, is it themselves a UN
No, I'm not able to do that. Stefano, welcome back.
Thank you, Stéphane. Yesterday on the Security Council, there was Russia called for the Salisbury chemical attack to talk, and when we heard how the conversation is going, the debate is going, it looks like an even worse wording than the Cold War. I mean, the Secretary-General said that this can bring the Cold War back. Well, it is astonishing to see 2 major countries on the Security Council, permanent member, talking to each other.
With respect, I watched as well. What is the question?
The question is, what is the position of the Secretary-General on the way the investigation has been conducted so far? means Russia is saying, accusing Great Britain that this is not the way to come.
We watched, I think all of us watched with interest the debate in the Security Council yesterday, but we have the Secretary General has no role in this particular issue, so we have no particular comment on it. Masood.
Thank you, Stéphane. So on this continued Saudi coalition action, rather, in Yemen, have you had any conversation, the United Nations had any conversation? Because now in the aftermath of Donald Trump signing this multi-billion-dollar arms agreement with them, it seems that basically it's getting a green light to do whatever they want in Yemen.
What is your question, Masood?
My question is, has the Secretary General...
I think as we've said, as I said to you almost every day, these are issues that have come up in conversations that the Secretary General has had, that his envoy has had, Mr. Griffith, with all the parties. The humanitarian situation in Yemen continues to be tragic for those civilians who have to endure it day in and day out. The UN is able to bring in humanitarian aid through ports through Yemen's ports and airports without restriction since the coalition lifted its closure of the ports to the movements in November 2017. We've increased the capacity of the UN verification mission, UNVIM, which, as you know, is involved in the screening of commercial cargo. But even that, there is not enough material coming into Yemen. There's not enough humanitarian aid. There's not even enough foodstuff or fuel. Even before the conflict, Yemen was dependent on imports for about 90% of its basic needs. What needs to happen is we need to see a halt to the fighting and all parties involved coming back to the negotiating table. And as we said, we hope Mr. Griffith's appointment will provide some new impetus.
Just an update that you were just giving on Lebanon, that the President Macron announced, was that $1.1 billion or $10 billion that were collected?
The numbers I have are $10 billion, and I hope they're right. If they're wrong, I will stand corrected. Mr. Lee.
Sure. It's an access question that, at least to me, arose yesterday during the Security Council meeting. It had to do with you. I don't remember if it was you or Farhan. I'd asked twice about the door between the third floor and the public gallery of the Security Council. And it seems that it's still locked, but it's only locked to some. Yesterday, in trying to go from the gallery down to the stakeout to hear what people said when they came out, not possible. So I wanted to know, there was a lot of unclarity.
Were you not allowed through the door when it was open?
I'm asking you because
were you not allowed to?
What is the current status of the door?
I don't have the key to the door. If you have any access issues, deal with Malu.
I have talked to them, and they've tried. They're not in charge of it. So I wanted to know
security is able to open the
why
door,
you would have two tiers of journalism.
Matthew, we've gone through this.
It doesn't make any sense.
Welcome to United Nations, Shauna.
Well, but you have a role in it. You play a role in it.
Do you have any more clarity on the Yangon meeting? Would it be Saturday
or
Sunday?
The what?
Yangon, Myanmar.
The press conference?
Yes, the press conference.
I read it before I came in here, and I cannot remember if it's Saturday or Sunday. But
okay.
As soon as we're done, she's giving a press conference in Yangon, either Saturday or Sunday.
And just another quick thing, on behalf of many print media, yesterday was absolutely horrendous to try and cover the Security Council meeting. The webcast froze, the Easy TV wasn't working, and it's been a consistent problem, at least for some of us, for the past month, the past 2 days. And can you try to
I will bring it
do
up to
something
those,
to someone?
I will try to
affect change, please. Yes. It's stressful enough without.
I understand.
Thank you.
Just as a quick follow-up on that, apparently the Easy TV problem was not only with all of us, but also with at least several missions that also use the Easy TV system.
I will look into my efforts. Mr. Lee.
Sure. I wanted to ask about the trip to China by the Secretary General. As you know, there's one being concluded and one still active, UN bribery cases pending in the Southern District of New York. Most recently, Vivian Wang.
I don't agree with
well, they
your
were both about
characterization.
bribing the
Okay.
PGA. I guess you can say the
Okay.
PGA is
Yeah.
not really the UN,
Okay, go
but
ahead.
that's a,
Go ahead.
it's a okay. So my question is, since there seems to be a pattern of in two cases, one was Englap Singh South News, who's Vivian Wang, has now pleaded guilty. The other is the China Energy Fund Committee, which remains in consultative status with ECOSOC. Is this an issue that the Secretary General, in visiting the home base of both operations, and both are alleged to be government connected?
The United Nations has cooperated with the Southern District here in New York in whatever way we can in any and all investigations. The legal process here has played itself out and is playing itself out. And as for the accreditation or the ECOSOC accreditation, as I've told you numerous times, it's a member state issue.
My question is that both companies were viewed as...
Thank you.